Yesterday, Nellie started a topic, not knowing she was starting it. I'm going to jump off of it. Body scanning. And it's a practice, it's a Buddhist practice, a way of meditating. And I have such a history of it myself. I started doing a body scan practice in 1987, and it was really my main form of practice for decades. And most of us that come to reflective meditation, if you're new here today, it's likely you have a past practice. Most of us have meditated before, but occasionally people come to reflective meditation and say, I have never meditated before. I've just heard of it, or somebody told me I should. And I've not been able to establish a practice. And we give so much permission for finding your own way in a practice and actually defining it and developing it. Sometimes I can forget that it took me a long time to ground myself before I was able to meditate, to sit, and coming into a receptive practice with that much permission. I don't know what that's like. I had a lot of direction before I came. So I try to always be, really kind to the idea that people haven't meditated before. What does that mean? Okay, so then I'm going to go back in time. So the first body scan I found was in a Taoist meditation, and it was called the microcosmic orbit. And I really loved it because it had this idea of I'm circulating energy through my body. I'm scanning each body part, similar to the way the universe would scan itself. So it's like nature and me were one. And I really enjoyed this practice because it had an idea of harmonizing, had the idea of good health and longevity, and I had early health problems. So it was something I was drawn to for deep reasons. And I spent time this weekend with a college friend, and she says, "Oh, I don't even remember you being slightly inclined towards meditation. I remember you going to many parties." And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I didn't find this practice until after college. And this idea of being one with a vast universe and in an interconnected system, it has stayed with me. It hasn't left me. So these early practices that we do, I would say they mature along with us, or maybe not. Maybe some of them don't mature along with us. But the hope is that they develop as we grow in our spiritual practice. And it wasn't directly stated to me at the time that I will do this practice and I will start to see the practice in my experience. And yet I did start to see this connection between myself and nature and energy and the cosmos. So I'm really curious about how an instruction or a practice that you do becomes a value, and then you see that in your experience because you're looking for it. And maybe you don't see other things. So over the weekend, we went for a few hikes in our local Satwiwa trails. And they're a cultural area that has kept all the native plants so that it could really reflect an area that was lived in by the Chumash Indians for many years. So it has this deep ancestral roots feeling to it. And it was a spectacular morning after the rain. And there were native sage and wildflowers. And there were also these digger bees. And they are bees that don't live in hives. They actually dig into the ground and bury themselves. And then they come out with the spring also. And they love morning glory flowers. Now, I didn't know all this. Somebody told me this. The bee expert actually told us this. But in the late afternoon, the bees end up going into these wildflowers, into the morning glory flowers, and they drink the nectar and they become drunk. And the flower closes over them like a little sleeping bag. And we could see places where the bees were actually, you could hear the buzzing in the flower. And he's like, oh, you could touch them. And I'm like, no, that's okay. But I just thought that was so interesting. Here I am with my friend, and I used to get drunk and be in college with and go in our sleeping bags. And there we were seeing these little bees in their sleeping bags. What a cosmic moment. But really where I got to with this is that it's super amazing of how much is going on in nature and how much I don't know and don't see. And on the other hand, it's just a bee living the life that its mind and body was born into and was given. And the same as I'm doing, just living in the form that I'm living. So it had this kind of fun aspect, but also a deeper acknowledgement for how I'm seeing interconnectedness now. But by the time I got to Buddhism in the late 90s, my first retreat was a Goenka body scanning retreat. And it was super easy for me. I had done this for years, and I really responded enthusiastically to the adjustments of the teachings. And as I think of it now, it was kind of like growing more capillaries and veins, and bringing in the teaching of anicca, of impermanence, of that things change, and that things are uncertain. And this was a big part of that direction of the teaching on the body scan, the Buddhist body scan at that time. So it really came in and informed my understanding of interconnectedness that I was learning from this macrocosm, microcosm practice. But the Buddhist teaching on interconnectedness is a little bit different. It has a different flavor, and it goes in the direction of not self, or anatta. And an analogy that I often hear is it's more like peeling an onion, and it's empty after layer after layer after layer. There's not like a pure unchanging kernel that we're going to find after we peel these layers. And in some Buddhisms, this is even given as an instruction. So recently for a retreat, I saw an advertisement. Meditation is not about you. Don't go to a retreat to think about yourself. I just was like, wow, oh boy. It seems like the opposite of what we do in reflective meditation. And yet we both are based around the teachings of anatta. We say, bring yourself and bring what matters to you, to a retreat, to a meditation. And you may find on that retreat that things are a little less personal, that your experience of yourself shifts and changes a bit, that it loosens, that your self-image is something that has evolved and matured over time. But that's more of an outcome. So where I'm left with thinking about this is how our instructions and our values really set up what we see. And that those are so interconnected. That's the interconnection I'm really curious about right now. And as my friend was leaving, she made a comment, my college friend, she said, oh, you have changed so much, and I haven't changed at all. I went, oh, now that's a very interesting statement. And I didn't want to get into a debate about it with her because it seemed really important to her that she had not changed, that her values were the same, that she saw a lot of things as not changing in herself. And that's actually more of her spiritual direction. So again, I'm just left with the curiosity of how our practice and our values and the way we talk about things to ourselves informs our experience and how interconnected that is. And is that the case for you? So again, welcome to anyone